Hi, you've come to the right place if you've registered for the free webinar, Conversations with Companions, 3-Step Method for Mastering Communication with Your Pets. This is Mitch, who likes to join me when I'm presenting a webinar or when I'm teaching. So I'm wondering if any of your pets are going to be joining you as you watch this webinar. I'm just going to pop him down and let him rest as he supervises me in the background. So yes, a big welcome, and I'm very appreciative that you have made time to watch this, because although this presentation is free, you are giving me something back that is very valuable, and that's your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for that. So let me ask you, have you thought about this question when you relate to your pets? You look at them and you wonder, are they happy? Perhaps you're worried with one of your pets and you wonder if he or she is in pain. Perhaps you have a pet that you don't understand some of their behaviors, or why do they react in a certain way? And you ask the question, why are you anxious? And if you're like me, I often ask the question to all of my pets, what more can I do for you? So you're in the right place if you are a pet parent wanting to understand how your pet thinks and feels. You are curious to learn how to communicate with your pet without needing to use verbal cues or observing body language. This can be useful if your pet is not in the same room as you. And that you would like to strengthen the bond with your pet. You already share a good relationship and you would like to continue to do so and just develop and get to know them even more. Now, this webinar is not for you if for the next 16 minutes you are going to be interrupted or you have distractions that's going to prevent you from enjoying my presentation. I really would love for you to be able to have this time for yourself where I can offer you education, I can offer you inspiration, and perhaps even bring some entertainment to you. So if you are distracted right now, then please feel free. You can re-register and watch it at another time. And this webinar is not for you if you're unwilling to apply what you learn. It is so important to open our minds and our hearts to trying new things, particularly if it's something that you've heard about, perhaps it's completely new to you, but you have an interest in it. And in return, my promise to you is that I will deliver as much value as I humanly possible in this webinar. And to reassure you that nothing I teach today is based on theory, because everything that you'll learn has already been tested and proven to work. And in return, I ask that you approach your learning with curiosity and enjoyment. You are ready to take on some new ideas and apply them with your pets, and that you are open to me sharing with you about my Pet Communication Quick Start course as I open enrollment. And during this webinar, you will learn 3 of the biggest mistakes to avoid when communicating with your pet. I want to save you the trouble. Once you know what those mistakes are, you can certainly avoid them. And my 3-step method for mastering communication with your pets, so that you can see how you too can believe that this is something that you can do and do well with your pets. My breakthrough came when I realized that being able to communicate with my pets was the #1 way I could successfully solve behavioral and health problems. I have 4 pet animals who I share my life with. And believe me, with 4 of them, there's always something. There is always something that happens, or things that I don't understand, or one of them can create a lot of disharmony. And so being able to communicate with them really has allowed me to solve many of the behavioral and health problems that had caused me concern. But guess what? It wasn't in finding the solutions that brought harmony into our lives. I originally thought that. I thought if only I could find the solution, if only they could tell me what's wrong with them, then I would have harmony in our lives. But actually, it was more than that. It was that I could recognize what my pets want to tell me about how they feel, and for me to know whether they're happy or not. Ultimately, isn't that what we all want as pet parents for our pets? Is to know that they're happy. When we know that they're happy, it almost makes the decision that we make or the choices that we have to take, they really help us to know what is the right thing for ourselves and for our pets. And it really helps us not to worry about what other people think and what other people tell us we should or shouldn't do, when we know that the decisions that we need to make ultimately will lead to our pets being happy. So, 6 quick facts about me. So you know who is this Joanne Yeoh that's telling you about animal communication. I live in Durham, which is the northeast of England. I discovered how animal communication helped my own pets around 6 years ago. I have 3 dogs and 1 cat. My favorite places are in nature, and I love walking along the woodlands and rivers. I actually enjoy dining out, but I'm going to confess, the reason I do is because I'm not very good in the kitchen. I don't have a lot of patience, so I'm sometimes known to make disastrous mistakes. And in my younger years, I reached grade 8 in playing the piano. It's something that I haven't revisited for many, many years. It's something that I hold dear in my life experience. I wonder if we share any common ground here. How it began for me with discovering animal communication was through one of my dogs, Donnie. In September 2012, I'd reached a very low point. I had tried so many different avenues to try to resolve an ongoing issue with him. I became this helpless and worried pet parent. I continued to trawl the shops and the internet, and I was just buying so much stuff, all the over-the-counter products, and also spending a lot of money on vet fees. Donnie started to develop this problem of chewing his paws, over licking, and it became worse and worse over a period of years. I ended up having to supervise him 24/7. I found myself frustrated and began to almost see like it was his fault. If only he could stop chewing and licking, then his paws wouldn't bleed. Then they wouldn't become infected. Then I wouldn't have to take him to the vets. then he wouldn't have to be prescribed medication. And then the cycle just kept going on and on. And whenever I looked at him and he was licking his paws, I'd just be saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. It really affected our relationship. Every waking moment was trying to have some peace, to not be constantly at him. And for him too, it was really awful for me to see him in such distress. He'd been through different tests. I've tried elimination diet. And like I say, I have almost bought the shop. And there was, again, all this money that I was spending on him. And yet, none of these treatments or products worked. They may for a little while, and then the cycle would begin. And I began to think, surely there must be a way I can find out how Donnie feels so that he can tell me what's wrong. So I continued to troll through the internet, literally day and night. Until one day, I stumbled onto a video clip of a documentary telling the story of how an animal communicator could help this animal who was struggling to settle in its environment. This animal communicator wanted this animal to relax and accept that the people were being kind to him, so he didn't need to be showing aggression. Now, I have never heard of an animal communicator at this point. I didn't really even understand what that meant. But there was something about this documentary, the way that the story was told, and the clips that they showed of how this animal communicator sat outside this animal's den and ever so peacefully and quietly appeared to be just really listening. And then this animal communicator relayed to this animal's owner what she received as information from this animal, and it blew my mind. And I thought to myself, at this moment in time, the way things were with Donnie, the way that I had been struggling with him, I even had close friends that said to me, you know, Donnie could be really stressed. Maybe he's so stressed. And I felt so guilty. What am I doing to my little boy to be causing him so much stress that he would be acting in this way? And that didn't really help me because, yes, I could see that he was stressed, but so was I. We were trapped in this cycle and didn't have a way out. I felt that if only I could get him to tell me, then surely that will allow me more understanding. So this documentary relayed how this communicator sat and listened to this animal and thought, I'm going to try this. I have, like I say, nothing to lose. So I, in many ways, just naturally followed what I observed she was doing in this video clip. And oh my, the result totally surprised me. I remember sitting next to Donnie and I said to him, I have never asked you how you are feeling. I didn't even really know it was possible to do that. I felt that it was my responsibility to make sure that it's me that solves this problem for you. And I feel such a failure because I haven't been able to do it. And I've had to put you through lots of different medications. I've put products on your paws. I have sprayed things on your bed. I've been shouting at you, and then I've been feeling guilty. You know, I said, we are trapped in this cycle. So I want to try this. I don't know if it will work, but if somehow you are able to communicate with me like I'm watching this video clip, could you do it? I am ready to try anything. And then I felt a sensation in my lower back. And I actually also had thoughts that came into my head that I knew weren't mine. It was my thoughts, but I knew that they weren't mine because I would not have thought about them in that moment, nor ever. I hadn't thought about it up to that point. The sensation in my lower back made my body feel quite achy. It made my hips feel tight. And it came quite subtly, but it was clear enough for me in that moment to catch it, to go, hang on a minute, what am I feeling here? And I had the thought in my head that said, I have back pain. Now, at that time, I did not know that there was a correlation between pore licking and pain. I just assumed, because that's what I've been advised and that's what I've been told, that all his pore licking were down to him being itchy and down to him having allergies, which is what we all went down the road to do all the testing. It never occurred to me that it would be pain. I also recall thinking, I don't know. He's not really ever shown me any other signs to tell me that he's in pain. And why would he be in pain? He's a young dog. But like I said, I had reached this point where I thought, I'm going to try anything. So I took it on board and I just said to Donnie, if that is a communication, like the way I'm watching this video, I am going to go with it. So I started to find ways to relieve his back pain. And you know what? It only took 3 days, and it's as clear then as it is now, or is as clear now as it was then, because it was so real that it completely took me aback. 3 days, I started to work on alleviating his back pain. I tried different methods, but it was focused on alleviating his back pain. And 3 days later, he completely stopped chewing and licking his paws. This had been going on for up to 3 years on and off. And in the latter part of that 3 years, it was all the time. And then it was 3 days after I tried this, what would you call it? At that time, I didn't know. Communication. And he stopped. And then I thought, could be coincidence. We've been down this road. He stopped before and then he'll start again. Anyway, he kept going. Day after day, he just didn't give his paws any attention. So I carried on making sure that his back was in a good condition. I made sure that he didn't have any pain because I absolutely believed in that moment, if that's what he sent me and I went along with it, that was good enough for me. That was good enough for him. And it was lovely to see my boy relax again. And he could go back to doing all the things he's always enjoyed doing. And I completely did not have to tell him off or shout at him. All the things that I had really, really felt so upset having to do. So let's just recall this again. In 2012, I was so desperate, and desperate was the absolute right word, to find a solution for his ongoing issue. I then followed what this animal communicator in the video did and found a solution to Johnny's issue. My mind was blown. So of course, my interest was piqued. I decided to look up all about animal communication. I watched videos, I read books, I even signed up to animal communication courses. this had such a profound impact on me, what happened with Donnie, that I thought, I cannot let this go by. I have to find out about it. So I dedicated a year or more into studying and learning all about animal communication. And then, because of all the courses that I signed up to and the practice session that I would get together with other students and the books that I've read, I learned how to communicate with other people's pets pretty well. But then I found that when I wanted to apply it to my own animals, I struggled. Every book I read, well, every book that I bought that I read, I can't say I've read every book that I had bought that I read, and the courses that I have embarked on, I found were very much leaning into teaching you how to communicate with other people's animals. There were methods and processes and worksheets and guidance and stories, so many stories about how animal communicators communicated with other people's animals. There's examples and case studies. I couldn't find enough information for me to learn how to communicate with my own. At some level, I knew that I had communicated with Donnie, that Donnie had communicated with me. But I didn't recognize in many ways how to do it properly, like the way that I had learned to communicate with other people's animals. And so the frustration was, I did this because I want to communicate with my own animals. It worked so well with Donnie. And then after that, all the other curiosities and concerns and frustrations that I continue to have with my animals, because we all, there's lots of us and we all have to live in harmony under the same roof. I thought, yes, now I found something that I can use with all of them, and they'd be able to tell me exactly what's going on with them, and it will make it easy for me to work things out for them. But the opposite became true. The more I communicated with other people's animals and found that I was getting good results, to the point where I became a professional animal communicator and my work was in demand. Yet, when I wanted to communicate with my own, when I was worried about their health, or when their behavior was becoming, a situation whereby I was like, I really need to understand this, I need to solve this, it didn't work. And so I got to a point where I thought, this is not right. And then I started to say to myself, I'll find my own way. Because right at the beginning, when I didn't even know animal communication existed, something happened for me to receive the information from Donnie. And obviously something else must have happened along the way when I became more conscious of studying animal communication formally. So I am going to find my own way. And that is exactly what I did. I started to focus on my own animals. I started to keep going with them, kept learning from them, things that worked, things that didn't work. And I'm happy to say that since 2020, I actually have daily conversations with my pets. And vice versa. They have daily conversations with me as and when we want. None of us are inundated with, oh my gosh, too much chatter. It's just a pleasure to be able to ask them things, a pleasure to be able to hear things from their viewpoint. And as a result, I also discovered there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other pet parents that also wanted to be able to hear their animals, to be able to receive their answers to their questions. And so I started to teach others to do the same, because I couldn't find anyone else that would teach specifically to communicate with their own pets. So I thought, I've worked it out with mine. I'm now going to share it with others. So yeah, I'm really happy to say that since 2020, I'm specifically giving you these dates because I wanted to show you that from 2012, I had no idea that animal communication existed. And then when I embarked on, learning about animal communication, it's taken me this length of time to actually find out how I can actually apply this with my own animals. And so I began to work with hundreds and hundreds of pet parents, helping them to believe that they can do this too. And I hope that that's what I'll be able to do for you, that you can believe that you can do this too with your own pets. And it all started with me realizing I was making 3 big mistakes when communicating with my pets. And I realized this by changing the way I approach them and recognizing how to receive their answers. 2 key points in the success of my learning to receive answers from my pets and the way that I ask them questions. So what does mastering communication with my pets actually mean? It means I can understand my pets better. I no longer just observe their body language. I no longer just wait for them to be vocal for me to go, okay, what do you need? It's no longer just about, okay, you're thirsty, or, oh, you want to go for a walk. It means I can really understand where their behavior is coming from. Perhaps their eating habits have changed, and I need to find out why. It also means they can tell me how they feel, and I can help them when they're anxious. How my animals feel is really important to me. And how can they express how they feel? Sometimes how they feel and the way they express it, we can misunderstand. We all know what it's like. We can be feeling insecure, for example, but our behavior can be very different. We can actually be almost appearing overconfident to compensate for our feelings of insecurity. And the same with our animals. We can misunderstand their behavior if we don't know how they really feel. And mastering communication with my pets means I don't have to second guess what they want, especially when they stand and stare at me. Does that happen to you? Do you ever have one of your pets just look at you and look at you and you go, what do you want? You've just had a cuddle. You've already had your walk. What's going on? And with being able to communicate with my pets, I can actually ask them and they can share with me in that moment, what are they staring at me for? So let's go into the 3 major mistakes to avoid when communicating with your pets. Mistake number 1. This is a really common mistake, and I thought the same too. Thinking this is not something you can do, and that only special or gifted people can communicate with animals. When I wanted to learn more about animal communication and I was mixing with other people in workshops and classes, I was hearing stories about how there were people that said, I always knew I could talk to animals. I always grew up around them, and I can't imagine a life without. And I started to question, oh, maybe I can't do this because I don't have that background. I grew up in the city. I had a pet dog as a child, but my pet dog was treated like a dog. I didn't spend time with her in the way that I do with my own pets now. I saw her around, but usually she was in another room, or, she wasn't allowed on the bed, or wasn't really much part of the family. And then as an adult, I worked in cities. I moved around a lot. It never occurred to me, to have a pet in my life. And it was really only in my late 30s, early 40s, that Donnie became my first adult dog. And so my recollection of, if I was to be an animal communicator, I would imagine that I'd have to be somebody who'd already be surrounded by animals all my life. So at that time, I was thinking, oh, maybe this is not for me. I'm not special enough. And, these people seems to be incredibly gifted being able to talk to animals and be so at ease around all animals, holding birds and rescuing spiders. So I don't want you to make that mistake. Being able to connect with your pets and sense how they feel and what they need is an ability that is naturally within you. So in addition to observing the body language and verbal cues of your pet, you can also access the 6 sensory senses: imagery, sound, smell, taste, emotion, and sensation, which makes up the vocabulary of your pet's language. So often we think that animals will communicate with us with words like a human language. But I want to introduce to you that the vocabulary of your pet's language is through imagery, sound, smell, taste, emotion, and sensation. Just how animals would talk to animals. We are a species, they are a species. As an example, this is Becky. This is her story. She says, I was close to giving up and I couldn't understand why I was not receiving any answers from my dogs when I communicated with them. It was frustrating and I lost my confidence. Then I learned from Joanne that I was only expecting the conversations to come through as words and thoughts in my head. Yet there were many other signs and information that my dogs were sending me, which I had missed. I finally understood that I needed to be fluent in the language of animals and not expect my dogs to speak to me in the human language. Now we'll go into mistake number 2, holding the belief that because you know so much about your pet that this makes it hard to know whether the answers are from your pet. Sometimes you think, hang on a minute, I've asked them a question, I've just had a thought in my head, but it's what I already know about them. So how would I know whether it's them that communicate or whether it's me that have imagined the answer? Well, by learning to ask the right type of questions, you can be sure the answers received are not answers you have made up in your mind. So the way it happened with me and Donnie right at the beginning, when I didn't know any of this, and I just went in with a very open heart and an open mind, I knew that I couldn't have thought it because I never in those 3 years even associated his paw licking with back pain. Yet that thought came into my head and I had the sensation in my lower back. So you do this by allowing your pet to describe the situations and experiences from their perspective. So the way it works is that your pet will send you the information from the way they see things, not from the way that you imagine it. So that's how you can be sure that the answer is from them and not you. So even if it's for things that you already know about them. So say, for example, you know that your dog loves playing with a ball and you get that answer from them. You can continue to ask them to describe their ball to you, how they feel, what the sensations are, what they like doing with it, and you'll get more information. And so that is how you know the communication is from your pet. So as an example of not questioning whether the information is from you or your pet, this is a story from Piedad. She says that when one of my cats was near the end of her life, I knew I had to make an upsetting decision. However, I also remembered to consider her feelings and opened up the communication channels to hear her wishes. I'm so glad I did, because I knew I did the right thing to help her pass away. And as a result, I could grieve without guilt. This is such a powerful story, because we've been able to communicate with our pets and for our pets to be able to communicate with us when it comes to the most difficult situation of helping our pets to pass away. When we know how they feel about it, it allows us to make the decision that is right for everybody. Mistake number 3, trying to empty your mind, go into a trance-like state and be physically still to prepare for a communication. This is one of the biggies for me at the beginning as well. Again, many of the courses, many of the videos I've watched suggested that the way to get yourself ready for a communication is to do a meditation or go into a meditative state. Well, I was just terrible with that. Whenever I did that, I would feel very tired or sleepy, and then I would feel as if I wasn't doing it right, and then I would lose focus. And then in time, I realized that it also took too long when I want to ask my dog a question, or I want to ask my cat a question. Maybe it's about literally in that moment, do you want that food, or you want to go out, or why are you scratching? I'm thinking, wow, to spend 15, 20 minutes to go into a meditation and then ask them that question, that moment's gone. I realize actually there are other ways that you can get yourself in the right frame of mind, body, and spirit in order to communicate with your own pets. You can engage in activities such as strolling and gardening, even showering, as long as you're in a focused and calm state of mind, body, and spirit. So take a couple of examples. Say it's in that moment I want to ask my dog a question, okay? And it's about, say, his food. I put the food down, he doesn't appear to want to eat it. So, okay, I don't want to go for a stroll or start gardening or showering in order to communicate with him. So, but I'll make sure that my mind and my attention is solely in that moment to ask him a question without any cluttered thoughts like, why are you not eating? I've just, made an effort with this. I don't want any of that. So I switch my mind very clearly, and I just will look at him and go, what is it about the food you don't like? As quick as that. Now, if it's about something else, say I'm worried about, my cat limping. Yes, when it comes to discussing something like limping, and I want to know if my cat's in pain, I do want to spend a lot longer communicating. I think it would be a bit disrespectful if I just went, what's the matter with you? Are you in pain? You wouldn't do that with a friend. If your friend was feeling unwell, you would take time, and approach him or her and ask questions around how they feel. So you want to be able to assess whether it's a quick 2-minute, question, or one that requires more of a discussion. So yes, I would, for myself, I often like to do a walk, and then that really allows me to be, fresh in my mind and calm. And in fact, while I'm walking, I will communicate with my cat. My cat will be at home and I will be out walking. So this is the beauty of animal communication. You do not have to be in the same room as them. So the desired state is to be focused and calm. It's important that you're not distracted, because you want to be able to receive this. The information can come in quite subtly. So you really want to be able to really catch that bit of information. And so you don't need to be in a meditative state. If you enjoy meditation, please do it. But if you find that meditation is something that doesn't really help you to focus, then do it as a separate sitting. Don't do it just before the communication. Make sure that you are of the right mind, okay? Right mind and body and spirit. So this is Kim's experience. She says, I love to work out and then settle in with a nice coffee for our conversation. Activity definitely helps me. Meditating makes me sleepy. I'm also really noticing how often my dogs communicate with me throughout the day now that I keep my energy calm and my mind focused. So it can happen during the day as you're doing what you're doing. When your energy is calm and your mind is focused, you'll find that your pet will come into your mind and start a conversation with you. So here is my 3-step method for mastering communication with your pets. Step 1, connect. The connection is in addition to what you already know. So without animal communication, you will be connecting to your pets primarily by body language, by verbal cues. So you would be physically physically near them, or touch them, or move them, or you can verbally call them. So animal communication is in addition to that. Animal communication is where you don't need to use the physical, you don't need to use the body language, and you don't need to use the verbal. What you do is you bring the energy of your pet to you so that you know you are connected. Saying that, we can happily take it that we are already connected with them. As I'm talking to you and you bring your pet to mind, you can really sense them. And the more you focus on them, say I've been talking about Donnie during this webinar, I feel him much stronger than, say, my other 2 dogs and my cat. But now if I start thinking about my cat, Ziggy, and I really think about Ziggy, I'm aware, I can see him in my mind and I can feel him. So just by bringing and focusing your attention with that one pet, if you have more than one pet, really helps you to bring the energy of them to you and you to them. So you recognize when you're connected and how that can compare to when you call your pet to you in person. And it is different. Don't make the assumption that if your pet's recall, the physical recall is not as you want it, it does not reflect on the energetic animal communication connection that you can have with them. So give yourself that openness to call them to you using animal communication and say to yourself, how does that compare to when I call them to me physically? And it's important because you can then check that both you and your pet are ready and willing in that moment to give each other attention. With animal communication, there is free will. You know, when you use verbal command, like come here, sit down, hey, guess what I got for you? Okay. Your pet will be acting from almost like a pre-program. Yeah, they've been programmed, they've been taught to respond. With animal communication, there is a choice for both parties. So they can hear you and receive your animal communication. However, they have the free will to choose to respond if you're looking for a physical response, okay? And what this means is that you get to, I like the term, hang out with your pet and connect in a new and special way. Because when animal communication is new to you, You're mostly familiar with being with your pet when you are in contact, when you're in the same room, when you can see them. With animal communication, you're going to experience that you can also spend time with them when you're not together. How useful this will be when you are out shopping, when you're at work, when you're on holiday, because you can continue to give them one-to-one time without being physically there with them. So don't make the mistake of rushing into asking them questions without establishing the connection, without, in many ways, enjoying this new and special way of connecting with them. Often we're so keen, I want to know why you're doing this, I want to know why you do that, I want to tell you don't do this, that we forget that animal communication also allows us this new and special way to feel very connected with them. Step 2 is understand how your pets communicate so you can experience how they think and feel. There are 7 sensory or intuitive senses or signs your pet uses to communicate with you. So this is in addition to body language and verbal cues. Animal communication is the non-spoken, and you do not have to be in the same room. So therefore, what you will receive will come through as visual, as sound, as smell, as taste, as emotion, as sensation, and also something called knowingness, where you just have this gut feeling, or you just have this just knowing. These senses can come through quite subtly or strongly. You may have a strong sense of visual and maybe not so strong with the smell or taste, or you may have a strong sense of emotion, but you might not have it so strong when it comes to sound or physical sensation. The important thing is that to know that your pet will use all 7 at maybe different times, or sometimes all at the same time, depending how rich you want the conversation to be, and you can develop these 7 sensory signs, these 7 intuitive senses. They can be developed. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to enjoy, to find out what new experiences this language will open up for you and your pets. And the learning becomes fun for all of you, so that it isn't just about a word here and a word there. But when you receive information, like with Donnie, when he sent me the thought, the back pain, I actually had the sensation along my back pain. It made me take notice much more. And communication is a two-way conversation that either one of you can initiate the conversation. So when it comes to you wanting to ask your pet's question, remember to also be the listener. And when you become fluent in the language of your pets, you'll find that when your awareness is so much more open and you enjoy this and you believe yourself and you trust the process, where you relax about it all, you'll find that somehow your pets will enter your mind and start a conversation. I have a feeling that already does happen to you, that sometimes you go, gosh, I wasn't even thinking about my horse, but suddenly he's on my mind. And so communication is not just asking our pets questions and expecting the answers to be immediately. It is definitely not in the energy of interrogation. I used to do this to Donnie all the time, so that's why I'm bringing it up. And also often when we ask a question in our communication with our pets, give it time. Sometimes it takes a while for our own pets to process what we're asking them. The answer may not be immediate. In the human relationship, we tend to expect that when we ask a question that the person will answer back immediately. And so we tend to fall into that trap with our animals and feel that when we've asked them a question and they haven't answered immediately, or we don't get a sensation, or we don't get a sound, or we don't get a visual, that it didn't happen. I'm saying to you, give them time. And we get to step 3, which is competence. This is the stage where you really start to enjoy it even more because you become fluent in the language of animals. So this is where you begin to recognize your communication style and you develop your awareness with receiving the information via the intuitive signs. So when you're learning, you tend to therefore follow what your teacher will show you or another animal communicator will tell you, follow animal communicators, read books by different animal communicators. You also will connect with other pet parents who are communicating with their pets, and you could be exchanging stories. So at the beginning, you may, in many ways, look at them and go, oh, yeah, they do it this way, and it looks really good how they do it. I'm going to try it that way. When you get to the competence level step, you start to recognize what your own communication style is, and that is so important. Always be you. Don't try to be somebody else. So the more natural you are, the quicker you'll be with the fluency. And then the enjoyment really comes in. You delve into what your pets are thinking and feeling so that you can truly see life from their perspective. Where I've talked about before, where you think, well, I don't really know so much about them. I want you to pause for a minute and really ponder. Do you really know? Do you really know? You know from what you observe, but do you actually know how they feel? Again, human to human, I can say about my best friend, her attributes, her behavior. I can even surmise and say, yes, because she feels like that. However, if I were to ask my best friend, do you feel like what I think you're feeling? This is what I think you're feeling. Is that correct? I'm sure she will say, yes, but I'm also feeling like this. So until I actually ask her and she tells me, I don't actually truly know her or anybody. So with competence, you become able and confident to harmoniously resolve behavioral challenges because you'll know how to approach the conversation, to allow your pets to describe how they experience things for you to gain important information, how to find solutions. Our pets don't always know the cause of what is creating their distress. However, they are able to describe how they experience things. So the more information that they can share with us, the more able we are as their pet parent to resolve any problems or distress that they have. So your pets may not always know the answer. So what we need to do is ask the question in a way that makes it possible for them to answer. Make sure that the way you want them to describe how they're feeling gives them the opportunity to send you as much information as they can through the 7 sensory signs. So let's do a recap. The 3 mistakes to avoid. Please don't think it's only the gifted few that can communicate with animals. By fine-tuning your natural ability to connect with the sensory signs, you can speak to your pets and receive their answers. Don't assume you know everything about your pets already. Be open to listening to them, share their feelings and thoughts from their perspective. I have learned so much about my pets since animal communication. I always thought I knew them, but when I really asked them for their views, their opinions, their experiences, their perspectives, it has opened up a whole new world to me. And don't think that the only way to prepare for communication is to sit still and meditate if you find this practice challenging. As long as you allow your body to move in a way that helps you to feel calm and focused, communication, guess what, can happen anywhere, anytime. So let me share with you this 3-step method for mastering communication with your pets, which I have spent years testing out with my own and then by teaching other pet parents as well. Step 1, connect. Step 2, converse. Step 3, get to the level of competence. Let me give you an analogy. Cinema, theater, something that I enjoy going to. And I don't know what you like, but I have the ticket for my seats. And I enter the theater and I look around and I think, wonder where my seat is. And I'm not always going to be there the first one. I'm pretty prompt, but sometimes I can be late. And I think, oh gosh, I could try and find out where my seats are by myself. And maybe I'll start going down the aisle and then, oh, yep, that's my row. And people have to stand up and move out the way. And then I go, oh gosh, it's the other end, because I'm not always very good with numbers. So I'm bothering everybody. And it's creating, a situation where I could put myself into a fluster. Or I can actually go and ask somebody to help me, somebody who's already knows the seats and can take me straight there. So the question is, how will you do it? Are you going to do it the quick, the easy, the straightforward way? Or are you going to do it the slow, the difficult and complicated way, using my analogy of the theater? But obviously I'm talking about learning animal communication with your pet. So this is where I'd love to work with you. And I genuinely mean this. I want to work with you if this is something that's right for you and your pet. Because this method is not just a bunch of theory. It really has been tested and proven to work by me, by many, many other pet parents and their pets. And if you were to take away one thing from this webinar, I want you to believe that you can communicate with your pets to receive answers to your questions. And I have developed a 3-step method that makes mastering communication with your pets accessible. And I've outlined that system for you today. So the big question is, how can you apply this method and tap into the power of animal communication to understand your pets better? Choice number 1, you can waste tons of time and effort trying to figure out everything by yourself. When it came to communicating with my own pets, this is exactly what I did. It took me years and a lot of frustration. Or I am truly excited to be able to offer you the fact that you can fast track your results with my easy to follow course, the Pet Communication Quick Start. So let me tell you more about this. The 3-step method for mastering communication with your pets, my Pet Communication Quick Start course. The aim is to banish guesswork for understanding your pets. And I'm happy to tell you, enrollment is now open. And I want to give you a bird's eye view of what you'll learn in my proven course. Module 1, we go to step 1, which is connect. This is where you'll learn how to establish a connection with your own pets so that real conversations can happen daily. You uncover strategies for boosting your connection so that you can easily communicate with one another wherever you are. You'll begin to recognize the signs when your pets are not wishing to engage at that moment. So don't lose hope with futile communication efforts. I want to save you that trouble. Then we go to module 2, which is step 2, converse. This is where you learn how your pets communicate so you can experience how they think and feel while recognizing their preferred communication style. Makes things so much easier when you know their own style. You explore ways of creating the ultimate setting for your pets to feel relaxed enough to allow conversations to flow easily. Crucial if you're discussing sensitive topics. You'll also discover how to communicate together without words, allowing you to break through the language barriers and hear the truth of their message with you. Imagine your pet confiding their true feelings to you. Module 3, step 3, the competence. This is where you'll experiment with the spectrum of topics you raise, so you recognize your pet's communications and find subjects they want to discuss with you. So this is where you'll have your topics and you'll also connect with what your pets want to talk about, not just what you want to talk about. This is an opportunity to resolve behavioral challenges by knowing how to approach a conversation so you receive clear communications that help restore harmony. And then when it comes to health decisions, you can reveal to them the care plan arrangements that you have for when you have to make difficult decisions, and so that they appreciate the vital role you play as an advocate for them. And I'm going to throw in quite a few bonuses. Now, why are these bonuses included in the Pet Communication Quick Start course? Well, the bonuses have a really important function. What the bonuses do is I want them to fast track your learning. The bonuses are there for you to utilize so that it actually enhances your learning. Okay, so they're not almost like separate to the course. They are almost like, if you see them as the bolts, you know, of the course to really ensure that you experience success when you work through the course material. So bonus number 1 is a visualization bundle to turbocharge your intuitive senses. Visualization exercises where you need to fine-tune and develop your sensory senses so that you can easily open up the communication channels with your pets. So when I say to you, you're going to, you may be somebody who has a strong visual sense and a strong physical sensation, but you're not so strong with your emotions or your sound or smell and taste. These are specific visualization exercises that will help you to develop all of your intuitive senses. There will also be an imagination activation kit. It's a workbook with fun and inspiring exercises to start activating your imagination, because imagination is the gateway to accessing your intuitive senses. And then I've compiled all my best tips, whereby if you flick through any one of them, choose one for the day, you will find that it's an easy to follow, practical tip that will quickly build your communication confidence. And then there's the super bonus, okay? Because what's going to happen is that when you learn something new, human nature is we're going to go, oh, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't really know what this means, and we make all these kind of noises. Well, there is a motivation and confidence bumper tutorial where I'd like to catch you before you fall that you can refer to, where this will develop your self-belief, your trust and confidence in your animal communication ability. So here's the full course. You have lifetime access for the entire course. You get the main Pet Communication Quick Start course, then you have the bonuses, the visualization bundle, you have the imagination activation kit, you have the best tips guidebook, you have my super bonus, which is the motivation and confidence bumper tutorials. There is also a private Facebook group support if you are a member of Facebook. Within the Pet Communication Quick Start course on the platform, you can also get support by asking questions, and myself and my team will make sure that we answer your questions. Let me share some stories with you of pet parents who have completed the Pet Communication Quick Start course. This is Dana, and she says, since completing the Quick Start course, I went from struggling to understanding single words my pets were saying, to having full conversations with all of my animals anywhere and anytime. And I absolutely love that. And here's Sue. She's also completed the Pet Communication Quick Start course. And she says, the outcome that I've seen since completing the Quick Start course has truly shifted my mindset. I suddenly found that it really is possible that we can tap into these skills, that we all have them. And that is a lot easier than I actually thought it was.